He was doing things that composers didn't do for like another 200 plus years. He's got a suite for harpsichord and violin based on bird song, which doesn't have rhythm. It just is like birds. It's really different than anything anyone else was writing. And so this is a piece called Battle, right? So it's for 10 instruments, you can see it here. And if you look at the basses, what do you notice is maybe a little weird for the basses right there? There's something different on the fingerboard.
Is that paper?
Yeah. So when he has you weave paper through your strings, and it's meant to imitate the snare drums that they would use during battles to communicate. And so this was from 1673. So I just want to play a little bit of this. You can hear that. And then I think it was about 200 years before another composer wrote something like that for the bass. Like, this is really out there for the time. And that's sort of the earliest that I know. Now for piano, it was a little later, mostly because the piano wasn't even invented in 1673. And it wasn't too exciting for a long time. This is a very famous piece. Does anyone know the composer Robert Schumann? You might have played some of his scenes from childhood.
Sure.
Right? So this is a piece called Carnival. And it's a really long piece of music. How long does Tiffany take? 30 minutes. And each movement is quite short, and it sort of imitates a different person. This is a movement called Paganini. Does anyone know that name? Has anyone heard it?
Violinist and politician.
Yeah, right. He was a very famous violinist from Genoa in Italy. And what made him so famous is that, frankly, he was so much better than most other violinists at the time. People literally thought he struck a deal with the devil to maintain the technique that he had. So Schumann wrote that. And in this piece, what you'll hear is a sort of extended technique at the piano where Schumann was big into doing things with pedal effects. So what you would do is you play all this kind of stuff, and then you'd hold a chord, and that chord would still sound like that. And so this is, as far as I can find, for piano, one of the very first sort of extended techniques here. It's really subtle. Did you hear it? That was it. That was it. And that's the 19th century extended techniques. We're done. And Rachmaninoff. He was later, though. He was a 19th century composer at heart in the 20th century.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so after Schumann, people did start doing that more. But it really wasn't until a little bit later where we start getting some of the more crazy stuff. So before we get into more crazy stuff, we're going to have people come try things throughout. So anything you want to try, feel free. But I want to just take a quick segue, because it is possible to hurt the pianos by doing some of the things I'm going to show you how to do wrong. Anyone know how much pianos cost? So let's start cheap. A piano this size, brand new, is how much?
Like thousands?
$15,000, $20,000. And that's like a pretty good piano, but you're not talking top of the line. If you're talking top of the line concert instruments, like the 9-foot grands, the big ones, anyone want to guess how much that is?
100,000.
Yeah. What's your guess?
200,000?
More.
Oh, I guess I'm behind the times.
Steinway ups their prices every year. I get pricing sheets from all the companies. So the top of the line 9-foot concert Steinway is $330,000. There are more expensive pianos. If you want a Bechstein or a Fazioli, you're looking at $400,000+. So you could buy a house or a piano. And this is why all pianists are poor, even the ones that make a lot of money, which aren't that many. So we have to be careful with this, right? So there's just a few things to remember. So if you want, come look at the piano. I'm going to show you which parts you can touch and which parts you should never touch. So come on up. Especially if you've never really looked inside a grand piano before. Come circle around. Yeah, anywhere you can sort of see the inside bit here. So we're going to look at a few different parts. So the first one is this, right? This is metal. You're not going to hurt metal. This is cast steel. Nothing you do will hurt this. It'll be fine. These, what are these called?
Hammers.
So these are the dampers, right? So the hammers are underneath. So if you play, right, you can see the hammers move underneath there and the dampers come up. The dampers are really delicate. So you should, as much as possible, you never want to touch a damper because even if it goes off to the side, that could mean that it's a repair. So we have to be really careful anytime we're playing around with the dampers, right? As far as the strings go, these ones here are made of steel. And then the ones down here are steel wrapped in copper. So even though these look bigger, copper is actually a softer metal. So you never want to do anything to the strings here using something harder than copper. So we're going to look at pieces that like pluck the strings and stuff. Guitar picks are great. Credit cards work, right? If you need a good use for your credit card. I forgot to bring them. I packed in a panic. But I actually have old piano hammers, and I use old piano hammers because I know I'm not going to hurt the string by using piano hammers. But like percussion mallets, anything that's soft or your fingertips are fine.
Well, John Cage used erasers.
Yes, we'll talk about Cage because he also did other things with the prepared piano and stuff. If you're doing something with the strings as well, generally you always want the pedal up. And that's because if this string vibrates when the damper is down, there's a small chance, but there's a chance that it could mess with the damper a little bit, right? So generally most pieces that use this have the damper up. If you're up here, it doesn't matter, there's no dampers, right? Other thing is, even if you are a clean person, your hands are always gross, right? So it produces oils, and so generally you have to make sure your hands are washed with soap, and then you'll, especially if it's a nice piano, you want to wipe down the strings with some sort of cloth afterwards. If you do all that, you probably won't hurt the instrument, which is great. And we'll talk more about prepared piano, which is a whole nother ballgame. But that's my little spiel that piano technicians get mad at me if I don't do. So, all right, let's look at some of the early extended techniques. So you can head on back to your seats. We'll have people come up and try things in just a minute. Get volunteers and things like that. Okay, so we're gonna start with a composer who now is fairly well known, but in his lifetime was considered kind of an oddball. And he's a composer named Henry Cowell. Has anyone heard that name? Yeah, all the composers know who he is. Yeah, so Cowell is sort of from a school of music we call sometimes you hear it as the American experimentalists or the American modernists or whatever it was. But he started 1920s, 1930s, somewhere right around there. And that whole school of American composition, for a lot of reasons, wanted to sound different. To greatly simplify music history, European composers were a little snobbish towards anyone from North America. Some still are. And so to sort of differentiate themselves, American composers really started to experiment. And there's this piece, and I'll show you the score in just a second, but I'm gonna play you a little bit at first by Henry Cowell that uses a very basic extended technique. So we talked about playing with the fingers. Well, I'm gonna use not my fingers to play part of this piece. And this is, I can never say this right, The Tides of Manuanan. I don't know how to say it properly. It's an Irish god, and this piece is supposed to depict the creation of the universe, right? The ebbs and flows of all the cosmic powers that created the whole universe. It's based on this old Irish legend. And so to depict that at the piano, he decided he needed something a little bit more than just fingers. And so this is the opening, and I will warn you, I haven't practiced this in about 2 years, so we'll see how it goes. Going from that. The waves of power, right? So let me show you what the score looks like so you can see. And this is something composers had to sort of figure out, is if you want people to do strange things, how in the world do you write it so that they know how to do those strange things? I don't want AI Assistant open. Thank you right now, Adobe. All right, so as you don't see in a lot of music, there's a big piece of paper at the beginning that shows you how to read it. But this is the first page. And so it's written this piece on like pretty standard notation. But if you look at the left hand, this is maybe a little odd, right? So he's got these block chords that you're supposed to play. So you have to reach the whole octave and sort of smash it with your open palm. And then it gets harder, because they get bigger. So now, all of a sudden, you have to reach 2 octaves. So you need to use your forearm all the way up. And it's notated, like you have to play the right notes still. It's still A and D. It's just all the notes in between. And then if we get to the second page, it gets even crazier, because then he writes that. And so this has a left-hand counter melody while you're doing the weird arm thing, which is kind of fun. So this, if I can remember how to play this, you have to go. Sounds great. Right? But this is supposed to be sort of the creation universe. So he wanted this sort of powerful sound. And block chords are a really sort of simple extended technique that a lot of composers use now. Another really famous example, let me pull up this next video here. This is another American composer. His name is Charles Ives. So he was sort of ahead of his time. He ended up being an insurance broker, very successful, made a ton of money. But his pieces weren't performed mostly during his lifetime even. It was sort of unappreciated for much of his life. And this is a piece he wrote based on a bunch of philosophers who lived in Massachusetts. But even just looking at the piano, there's something weird in that piano right now. Does anyone see something you may not expect to see in a piano?
Yeah, right there.
What is that?
2x4.
Yeah, it's a 2x4 that you have to cut to a very specific size. And that's because he has, in the second movement, a very specific chord that he once played that is physically impossible for normal humans. And so it's hard to see in this particular video, but you can kind of see there's this black line here. If you ever play this piece, which would be amazing, this is one of the hardest pieces. I've only learned one movement because I learned the easiest. Not this one. There's actually a piece of felt on that wood so you don't damage the keys, right? And that's in the score. There's instructions that Charles Ives gave you. And this is a really strange piece because it's also the only solo piano sonata I know that both has a flute and a violin part, that you have to have like other people come and play for about 2 minutes in a 50-minute long piano sonata, which is odd, to say the least. And so this is another one here, and then I wanted to show you one that you could look at on your own. So I'm going to show you the score here, and then we'll get a couple of people to try some of this. So there's a composer, his name is György Kurtak, right? And this is a piece called Games, Játékok, right? Is how we would say that. And so in this piece, he's got, you can sort of, I'm going to go to the actual music, not the exercises. All sorts of fun notation, right? And he wrote these pieces as games for his own students. He actually would perform them. It's one of the cutest videos I've ever seen. It's when Kurtak was quite old. He and his wife would play all the duets together, and they recorded it live at the Library of Congress. And they just like sit there, and they're like so cute together. It's great. But this is his music, and so we've got all these sort of different chord clusters notated. And so I want to volunteer. Anyone want to try this? I think you've been volunteered. I'm assuming by maybe your dad, is that? Come on up. Come on, it'll be great. I'll show you how to do this. It's really easy because it's chord clusters. So grab a seat. So if you look at the rhythm, there's a black note and then a white note, right? White notes are longer than black notes.
Yeah.
That's all we got. What's our dynamic? Do you see?
3/4.
3/4. So it's loud. And then it goes from somewhere like here to somewhere like here. And you do that 3 times.
Okay.
Try it. See what happens. Just go psh, psh, both hands. Yep.
Anywhere?
Yep. And then I would use pedal. I think it sounds more fun. Triple forte, triple forte.
Oh.
Try again. Yep. It's not here. Let me show you triple forte. Come on. You're not, this part of the piano you will not hurt. Triple forte. Yeah. Like that. That's the piece. And then, before you go away, do you see the weird bars at the end? That's forearms. You do this. Bam. You just, like that. One arm on the white, one arm on the black. Yep. Like that.
Yeah.
Perfect. There you go. Yeah, these pieces are amazing. They're really short. I've used them as warm-ups with most of my students. If they're interested in this kind of stuff, I just get them to sort of warm up with it. But he goes through, and there's a lot of different techniques that he uses and different notations. So I want to skip down to this one here, which is fun. And this is, as you can see from the title, it's called Fist Play 1. So instead of using your palms or your forearms this time, and he has different symbols. This specifies you use the edge of your fist. And then this symbol here is the flat part of your fist. So you get sort of these kind of different ideas. And so this one would be something like. And that's it, right? So this is, I think, a really fun one. And these are super approachable. He's made them available online. You can go find them pretty easily. But these are great pieces for everyone to sort of look at for that. Okay, I want to jump to some of the more crazy stuff that people have come up with for the piano. And we're going to go back to Henry Cowell, because he's one of the guys that started doing this. And so this one, I want to show you the music first, and then we'll look at what it sounds like. So there's another long explanation, as you don't usually see in piano music. Right? There's lots of instructions, because this is the music. So there's note names in bass clef. That's about all that's normal, maybe. The rest of it looks a little odd. Does anyone know what a banshee is? Has anyone heard this? Yeah. What is a banshee?
Is it like the creature that like scream?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an old Irish legend, right? So traditionally it's the ghost of somebody who met an untimely demise, and if you hear the banshees scream, you are the next one to go, kind of thing. So it's not a great supernatural creature to run across. And so he really wanted to make sure that this piece sounded different, right? And so he's got this weird notation because the whole piece uses only the strings of the piano. So we'll play a little bit of this first, and then we'll have some people try what they're doing. Right, so it's supposed to sound like screaming, right? It's supposed to be a little spooky, a little weird. And it's all notated. You have to hit the right pitches, right? This is all incredibly specific, where glisses start, where they end. And you can see he's got things marked on the bridge there. Or sorry, not the bridge, the crossbeam, to let him know where those notes are on the keyboard. You'll also notice there's a second performer. His job is to hold the pedal. That's it. So when I've played this piece, I've replaced the second performer with a brick, because it's way easier. You don't have to pay a brick. So, who wants to try some string stuff? Yeah, come on up. Okay. All right, so let's have you, we'll come all the way around here. And so then when I'm gonna go sit at the piano and push the pedal. You can use your nails, and you just want to sort of go, you can gliss this way, you can scratch down this way or up, and just sort of see what types of sounds you can get there. There you go. Anyone else want to try? You've been volunteered. Come on up. Well, he volunteered you. No. It'll be great. You can't play a wrong note. What could go wrong? There you go. Yeah, and muting too, right? New thing. There you go. Nice. Nice. Yeah, great. Right? So that's another thing that a lot of composers now do, is play inside the strings, and there's all sorts of pieces like that. One that is maybe a little bit more approachable than the Banshee, and I'll play you a little bit, is another Cowell piece. It's actually from the same set of music. And this is called Aeolian Harp. And so this one I really like because it's actually quite pretty. And so I want to play you a little bit because it demonstrates a couple different techniques here. Okay. And so the way this works is the chords that are notated, you have to push down silently. So there's no sound, you push them down. And then you strum. And he tells you the direction of the strums. And then, let's see if I can do this without marking the strings in advance. It's hard to do without. And then you have to pluck, and then you go back and get to do all sorts of stuff. And so this is actually, it's not hard. If you can play 4-note chords silently with one hand, you can play this piece. If you're getting old like I am, something else to consider is you probably should stretch, because it's hard to practice like this. Your back gets really sore. Some of you are too young to worry about that yet, but it's a good habit to build. But you do sort of start to feel it there. And so that's another example. And I want to go to, let's look at another later American composer. His name is George Crumb. And we're going to look at, where is this? This piece here. Eine kleine Midi-Nachtmusik. So George Crumb is an American composer. He's sort of the gold standard for notating extended techniques. So whenever a composer asks me how to write an extended piano technique, I just tell them, go look at George Crumb. He just passed away a year ago?
Oh, wow.
2 years ago? Recently. He was in his 80s or 90s. He was quite old. But he's one of my favorite composers. And so even before we start, we don't have this right now, but you can even see it's for amplified piano, right? So you're supposed to actually have amplification because there's so much inside the piano stuff that's softer than the keys that you need to like balance it out with amplification. And so we have a little bit of that, but I want to show you. So this is his music, and I'll do a little bit of the first movement for you. You can see it's got 4 staves, which is fun to read. It's all handwritten, so his hand is pretty nice, but there's a lot of things going on in this. This is a piece, even though the title looks like Mozart's Eine kleine Nachtmusik, yum, bum, 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 it has nothing to do with that. It was an inside joke, basically. It's based on a piece by Thelonious Monk. Who's Thelonious Monk? Anyone know? Jazz pianist, right? Kind of an odd dude. Only ever recorded his own music. Wore strange hats, liked to dance when he wasn't playing. But this is one of the most famous jazz ballads out there. I pulled up the wrong piece. And it's called Round Midnight. And so I'll just play you a little bit of Round Midnight if I can find. R comes after P. There it is. So the tune. And then if we had some melody, some harmony. So we have that tune, and that was the inspiration for this piece by George Crumb. And so he took that same melody, you'll hear it right away, and then kind of just added a lot of strange stuff to it. Oh, I didn't check the sustain pedal. Does this work? Okay. All right. So that's the first line of that piece there. So you can see what he's done is he's written normal notes, and then he's got pizzicato in the side of the piano for the left hand, and then all the weird stuff, the glissandi. I forgot to bring my yarn stick because I live in Nashville and I packed in a hurry, but that's supposed to be hitting the cross beams with like a percussion mallet, and then you've got glissandi in the lower levels as well. And so he's using all these sort of different things combined in kind of an interesting way. And I want to share just a little bit of one more example with you. This is a piece written for me by a good friend of mine. Her name is Teresa Thordarson. We're both part Icelandic. And so this piece is based on an Icelandic rímur, which is like this old poetry form, but it's also got some Bjork in it, which we won't get. I'm gonna play the whole piece, but people know who Bjork is? If you don't know who Bjork is, you should go look up Bjork, because she's awesome.
I actually do her plates. Well, I actually do her plate only a little bit.
Yeah, she's got lots of great albums. She's got the album Army of Me is like sort of a much more traditional poppy kind of album, and then she's got strange albums that are all in Icelandic with like folk choirs, and then she does like film scores where everything is inside the movies, so that you just see people like drumming on the street if she wanted a drum beat with it. She's bonkers. I love her. But this is a little bit of hypoballad, just so you can sort of get a little bit more idea of what we can do inside the piano. And then it sort of goes on from there a little bit. But just sort of another example of that, of inside the piano. There's another really fun thing. I want to see. Okay, let's maybe come back to that. I want to jump to prepared piano. Anyone know what that means? How do you prepare a piano? Isn't it just like ready?
Just open it and then just like open it up and then you prepare like. I shouldn't know.
No, that's fine. It's a good guess. Yeah.
I know that they screw like nuts and bolts onto strings.
Mm-hmm.
And use different things within the strings, and you have to be careful because you can ruin them.
Absolutely. So I'm going to show you this piece. This is his most famous prepared piano piece, but he's got lots of others. This is Sonata in Interludes by the American composer and philosopher John Cage. He's one of my favorite people, especially to read. His book Silence is incredible, and a lot of his music is great. And this is on my to play list before I die. There's a lot on that list though, so I don't know. There's too much music that I want to play. So I want to show you a couple things in the score first. Where's my mouse? There it is. Okay, so first off, there's this page. And so this is the instructions for how to prepare the piano. So he's got every single note on the piano that needs to be prepared listed. And then he tells you the material, right? Strings left to right. Do you only prepare, right? We know notes have more than one string if they're up high. Do you use all three strings? Do you use one of them? Do you use two of them? And it tells you what type of the material is. So we've got screws, medium bolts, furniture bolt and two nuts, all sorts of different things here. And then we've got distance, which we'll get into in just a second, why that matters, and sort of goes through. And then he tells you what the note should sound like. This takes about 2 or 3 hours to set up properly. It's really easy to break a piano when you're doing this kind of stuff. One of my old teachers played it when I studied with him, and so I would help him set it up. And it took us absolutely forever. Oh, it was so annoying. But now I know how to do it. This is something, don't do on your own. Get a piano technician first to sort of show you how to do it. And anytime you're using metal on the strings, it's really quite scary. Most universities have like a separate piano that you're allowed to prepare because you're not allowed to touch the real good instruments. Just because of how easy it is to sort of mess it up. Now the music, I'm going to jump to number 5 here. There's the interlude. There it is. The music just kind of looks normal, right? So if you were to play this as written, very exciting, right? But what makes this piece special is what he did with the prepared piano parts. And so this is that same movement. And you can see, let me make this bigger first. Inside the piano, right, we have all these bolts and screws and all sorts of stuff inside the strings. So that's the prepared part of the piano. And it really completely changes the sound of the instrument. There's the piece, right? You can kind of hear it, but it sounds way cooler, I think. And not every note is prepared, and so when he's writing this piece, he has to sort of remember exactly what pitches will sound like a piano and what will sound like something else. So what does this remind you of? What other instruments does this kind of maybe sound like?
Gamelan.
Gamelan, yeah. What else? Drums, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what he wanted. So his partner, Merce Cunningham, ran a ballet company out of New York City during the 30s and 40s. So it's the Great Depression. It's a composer, philosopher, and a ballet dancer. So they had no money. And Merce Cunningham wanted a percussion score for this new piece he was choreographing. Obviously, they couldn't afford to hire like the 30 people you need to have a percussion ensemble and all the instruments and everything. And so that sort of helped John Cage lead into this. And I'm simplifying a little bit, but that's sort of where he came up with these ideas, right? Just to sort of help make different sounds. And there are all sorts of different people doing this. One of the more recent ones, I'm going to jump to, let me get rid of this one. That's the problem I have, like 30 videos on enough. All right, so this is a guy, his name is, well, his real name is Vertel Berkelman, who he goes by the name Hauschka. He's a German sound artist, composer, pianist. Does a bunch of film scores, if you're big into like indie German art film, as everyone is. But he came, he's done tours and stuff. So this is one he did at NPR. And so what they did in this recording is literally they had an intern like run out to like a home hardware store and just buy a bunch of random stuff. And then they gave it to Hauschka and basically said, can you improvise us something using, you'll see, ping pong balls and things of tic tacs and motors and all sorts of strange things. And so I really like Hauschka. So first thing he's got here, it's hard to see, there's a motor on a string that's vibrating it. So he's creating a drone to sort of build the rest of his improv on.
Did he specify what he wanted at the hardware store?
Nope, they just gave him stuff. That's the stuff they gave him. There's the Tic Tacs, So you can hear that pinging note, the strings are muted with basically like a plastic doorstop, essentially. And he's taped a bottle cap. That's all that is, so it sounds like a little snare drum kind of thing. Which I always think is really cool. I like his stuff. You can buy his music. It has instructions on how to prepare. And what's really good with him is he actually prefers uprights. And so his instructions are all for upright pianos. And so if you have an upright, you can actually do this kind of music. And his instructions are very thorough. Like it's like wrapping tinfoil around different strings and things like that, which is kind of fun. So you can do some of this on not grand pianos, which is great. This, though, isn't even the most complicated preparation. There's another one. So this is, let's go, here we go. All right. This is the Bode Piano Ensemble, started by Stephen Scott. This is a true ensemble piece. You need lots of people to do this type of music. And so you'll sort of see it, but they're using fishing line and cardboard and a couple other things to sort of create this sound. But what do we think it means by the bowed piano ensemble? What instruments use bows?
No, not harpsichord.
Right, string instruments, cellos, violins, violas, where you're bowing your string. And if you think of the piano, it is a percussion instrument because you're hitting things. But what they've done is they've taken away the percussive instrument part and they're treating it like a string instrument. So you have to vibrate the strings somehow. Fishing line is cheap, right? And so this is their piece here. So there's the cardboard. There's the fishing line, right? So they're literally bowing the insides of the strings. And maybe it's a little cheesy, but I love it, And I've done something like this, not quite as complicated, but it's one of the hardest parts is actually just keeping track of what fishing line goes to what note. So you can see they've color coded, which is smart, So upon first hearing, if you didn't know that was a piano, I never would have guessed that was a piano. I probably would have said synthesizer, right? But that is something we can do there. There's also, there's lots of other stuff. I want to make sure we sort of get it all. I'm going to play you a good section of this one part. So there's this thing called speaking pianist, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's where you have to talk and do other things while you're playing. And I think a great example of this is also going to involve playing the piano with maybe unexpected body parts. So I have played this piece, but it's actually kind of hard. So I'm just going to play a video because I did not practice it. This is a piece called One Man Band by this German composer named Moritz Egert. And so I want to play this basically the whole thing, because it's pretty funny. I don't want to spoil it too much, but some of Egert's other pieces, and I've played these, are for kazoo symphony, which is always kind of fun. You get 40 people on a kazoo. It sounds great. That gives you maybe an idea. And so I don't want to spoil it. We'll watch this performance. But you'll notice when weird things start happening. chords right there. I love this piece. I think it's hilarious. And it's all notated. Your chin has to hit C, D, E. Like, it's very specific. Your left foot, when it goes way up high on the piano, you have to be quite flexible. It's supposed to hit the low B flat. She missed one. It takes some coordination, for sure. If you've never tried playing something with your hands and doing something inside the piano at the time, it's really hard to not look at your hand at the same time. You miss a lot. I know, because I did. But it's really neat what sort of people can do with this kind of stuff. Let's do a couple other different things. So I want to jump to something that is much more recent. And so a lot of these techniques have been around, throughout the 20th century. But there are some new things, and I say new, post-1950, though I have really recent examples, of sort of new possibilities. And so I'll start with this one here. And I didn't bring my synth, so I'll play a video with my friend Zach. This is a piece written by my friend Andy, New Hymns, and it's for piano and synthesizer. So you have to play both at the same time. It's all notated, right? You have to download the patch and everything to sort of get it to work. But it's really a great piece. And so I'll just play you a little bit. This is in the second movement. And this is new-ish for classical music. This has been around since the late 60s and 70s in jazz. So like we're 50 years behind the times. But for classical music, that's not bad. Sometimes we're a little slow. But it's a really great piece. And it's fun to sort of get to know how synthesizers work, because it is a keyboard input, but frankly, it's a totally different instrument, right? It's not like playing the piano at all, which is always kind of fun. And again, you'll notice Zach's setup is a little different than when I played this, but it is also weird to play when you're like looking sideways at your music. I just memorized it. That seemed easier. So the cool thing about synths is they have what are called sequencers, which means you can set up these repeated patterns that you can then manipulate, but you don't have to actually actively play, bum, 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 right? You've built that into the patch, and then you can modify it as you're going through. So there's all sorts of new possibilities with this kind of stuff. And there's other ways composers have integrated electronics. So I'm going to show you. Let's do this one. So this is a piece by a Canadian composer. Her name is Nicole Lizet. Why can't I find my video? Electronic tracks. There it is. Okay. And so what she did, that's not the right file. Where's the right file? It's named the right file. There it is. Okay. So what Nicole did, and we'll skip ahead a little bit to my favorite one, is she is a big film buff. And so she's written all these pieces of music using different films. So this is called the Hitchcock Etude. So it's a bunch of middle period Hitchcock films. The movement we'll look at is from The Birds, which, I mean, it's from the 60s, so if I'm going to spoil anything, but like birds attack you, that's pretty much the movie. But she sort of edits the movie and like manipulates the soundtrack a little bit, and then writes a piano part to go along with that sort of resulting sound. And so I'm going to play a little bit of this second movement, which this one I haven't practiced in, It's been a minute. 4 years? I'm very well prepared. Okay. So let me find the beginning of this movement here. Creepy stuff. That's from the rope. Here we go. All right, so this is from the Birds. It's called the Schoolhouse Etude, and it plays on the fact that in horror films, usually the creepiest thing you see are children singing. And I don't know why children singing in horror films is so terrifying, but it is, and lots of horror films use it. So this is the creepy children singing.
With every stroke she shed a tear. Ristlety, rustlety, hey Johnny Dostlety, restley, low quality, ristlety, rustlety, now, 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 now.
Sort of goes on through that. But the whole piece is 20 minutes. If you don't like Hitchcock, she's got a Steven Spielberg set, a David Lynch set, a Stanley Kubrick set. The Lynch, some of you are too young to know who David Lynch is the creepiest. So if you want real creepy, it's a lot of Twin Peaks and strange things. But if you know who David Lynch is, you've seen Eraserhead and these other movies. That makes sense why it's so weird. So I want to end with one more example of stuff with electronics because it's one of my favorite things to do. And this is a piece of music, let me see if I can find it here, called The Body of Your Dreams, which is one of my favorite things. It's written by a Dutch composer whose name is Jacob TV. So it's his pseudonym, Jacob Terveldhuis is his full name. TV will make sense in a second. So the story of this piece goes that in the early 2000s, he was in the Netherlands watching late night American infomercials for some reason. And he saw an infomercial for this device called the Abtronics Pro, which is one of those exercise belts that you wrap around and it shoots you with electricity. It's supposed to give you abs. Unfortunately, you can't buy it anymore. Shockingly, it doesn't work, and so it's banned. You can't buy it in North America. And he was so taken by this Abtronics Pro, he thought this was the silliest thing I've ever seen in my entire life, that he wanted to write a piece of music about it. And so what he did is he took audio, so everything in the electronics that you'll hear comes straight from that infomercial. And then he wrote this kind of like poppy piano part to go along with it. And so I'll play a little bit of this. The whole thing's like 10 minutes long, so we won't do all of it. But this is a little bit of The Body of Your Dreams, which I think is one of my favorite pieces.
Now you're ready to hear about the latest evolution in the fitness phenomenon.
And ladies, listen to this. That's cellulite flabbiness.
sort of goes on from there.
Preparation for competition.
But I love this piece. I think it's one of my sort of favorites.
It's a little bit,
It's weird.
yeah, it was a bit cringe.
A little bit, yeah. It gets worse. There are some things that happen in the last half of the piece. That's usually when usually audiences don't believe me when I say it's a silly piece and not meant to be that serious, and they usually sit in silence for the first 3 or 4 minutes, and then somebody goes, "Huh." Somewhere. And that's usually when everyone loses it a little bit. And then by the end, it's very silly. But there's lots of stuff that you can do with just the piano if you're sort of getting outside the box a little bit. So that's my rant about electronics and extended techniques. I think that's it, right?
Perfect.
Yeah.
And for something totally different for Brendan's performance down the street.
There we go.
What are you planning for your performance? What do you have to look forward to?
We'll be doing 2 pieces, well, 2 sets. So the first is a Bach partita, which is a dance suite. And so this was his first publication, 1726. Not his first piece, but he was already in his 40s when he wrote this. And then the second is a selection of Philip Glass etudes. And if you know who that is, you probably know him best from his film scores. Again, many of you are too young. His most famous recent film score, he did the score for Candyman, like the slasher horror fic, which I'm assuming the young people haven't seen yet. It's pretty gruesome. But he has a lot of film scores and operas that he's sort of best known for as well. And so we'll be doing those 2 sets.
Which partita?
First one. Yeah, B flat major. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna start running down
Yeah.
because I have to set up. So.
Perfect.
Do we have time for one question?
Yeah, for sure.
I just wanted to ask about, prepared piano and extended techniques have always been something, well, at least for the past, who knows how long, 50 or so years, or longer, because you showed us that. But has it worked its way into any mainstream music?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say the most common place you hear techniques and instruments developed from 20th century classical composers is film music. So a lot of the techniques, even Bernard Herrmann, who worked with Alfred Hitchcock, but also more recent people, John Carpenter, who did the scores for Halloween, a lot of those sounds came from classical music. And I'm sure everyone in this everyone knows this song again. Let's see if it's gonna play. So this is my favorite example of classical composers being semi-relevant. So if you've seen Stranger Things, this is Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush, right, which was one of the sort of big songs in season 4. That sound we're hearing is a Yamaha DX7 synthesizer, which is that's the 80s. Pick a song from the 80s, that's the sound. And so the Yamaha DX7 uses something called frequency modulation, which was developed by this Princeton professor, John Chowning, who worked at IRCAM, which is the Music and Research Institute in France, led by the contemporary composer Pierre Boulez. And so it slowly filters its way in, and usually what ends up happening is classical composers and other people come up with the sounds, and then 15 years later, somebody else smarter than them figures out, oh, I can use this, and I'm gonna make tons of money. But there's all these sort of connections where people do have that. Another film composer who uses it a lot is James Horner, who, I don't know if people have seen the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, he did all those scores for that. And a lot of the techniques there's actually, I don't remember where in the film it is, but there is a part in that movie where you hear this. This sort of ominous creeping sound. It is the low B flat of the piano muted. That's what he wrote for that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I just don't picture people listening to this music as they meditate or whatever.
Some of it, maybe. Some of it, maybe not. Yeah.
And I think that people hear it most at university concerts and things like that.
Yeah, and it is slowly working its way into repertoire for younger students as well. So like Christopher Norden is a great example. Kurtak, the pieces we looked at as well. There's a young composer named Caroline Schubring who's starting to write a bunch of music that uses extended techniques that you can use on any instrument, including digital. So it's like knocking and keys and like folk-based music. So it is sort of becoming something you do see more often, which I think is great because, it's always kind of fun to get out of the box a little bit. Yeah.
Is there any way we can get a little list of resources from your talk?
Yes. I'm sure I have a list somewhere.
I definitely want to use those kids' pieces.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay. I'll take a look. I know I've talked about it before. I'm sure I have a list somewhere on my computer.
Love to
Yeah. 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 Any other questions?
I'll just say that
Yeah.
when I was lucky enough to go to a performing arts high school, and I always knew that I wanted to be a musician, and I was interested in writing songs, and I was into that. But the first time I ever saw this composer put his head into the piano, I thought, that's it. That's where I want to be. It's like immersed inside that. It was just so amazing as a young person seeing that for the first time.
Right.
That there were so many more possibilities than.
Yeah, and if you get out of the piano box, there are old arias and stuff, not arias, art songs, where composers will ask that you sing into the piano to create resonances. These are ideas that go back much longer than people would guess, which is always kind of fun. Yeah.
What was the name of the person that did the thing with the movies?
Her name is Nicole Lizet. So L-I-Z, or Z, we're in America, Z, and then E with a little accent on it, because she's Quebecois, she's French, and then E. So L-I-Z-E-E. That's her name. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Great. All right, well, I'll see you all in 40 minutes when I have to play a concert.